Um, the primary purpose I'm going to do this last one before I go out and get some vitamin D from the girl up in the sky that's providing us all the sunshine. Because we've had some sunshine for the last couple of days, right? Now, vitamin D3 is real important right now, obviously. But we know how to build ozone on the planet, right? Sure do. Um, those of us that are in the tribes and the clans, traditional Native American Indians, the Indians, the tribes on the planet. I had a beautiful experience I thought I'd share with you this morning because we love to tell beautiful stories. At least I do. The kind of stories that lift your heart, your soul, your spirit. Wow. Wow, how beautiful to experience that, right? Because we experience the most majestic, spectacular, magnificent cosmos that you can possibly imagine. Because it is the imagination that is the kickstart. The Magneto, man. Bang! Wow, explain to me how that star works. I'll write a book about that, right? But I walked out of the mess hall this morning because in this particular mission where I'm at, helping a few people to get to keep their energy up, heal from what they've lost, which is energy as a result of everything that they threw at us, right? And that is sort of ties into what I said in my previous video about Fulford. You know, I was just some historical stuff about my own life is that I was very fortunate, and I always give gratitude to my father, which was Willard Sweetman Jr. I love my father a lot. He was a good man. He was the most honorable American I ever knew in my entire life. Okay? He had basically one rule that if I ever would get hit on the butt with a belt, was if you ever get caught lying. Okay? Because he understood the importance that if you're going to trade with somebody or do business with somebody, and if you want to have a valuable, thriving relationship with somebody, you start lying to people and they can't trust you, then they don't want to be around you. So the quickest way to lose friends and lose thriving relationships is to start lying to people. Okay? Now we're back to data. Now we're back to electrons, aren't we? Pushing electronic data that is misinformation or disinformation, okay, is a crime, actually. Because nobody benefits by that. And usually what occurs as a result of that, they get misled. Now, when you think of it in the context of a classroom, teachers are not supposed to be lying to you. But then we're back to free will, and you're entitled to believe whatever you want to believe. So if you took an empty skull, okay, and you think of a classroom, 25 people out of whack, you got 25 skulls of mush in there, okay, where information is being put into it that's being written using RAM. Well, they operate off that information to become future slaves to a system that if you look at it through the biofeedback and measure it on a scale of mapping the entire consciousness terrain of planet Earth, you look at the results. That's what I did. Collected all the data. And I got the feedback from all of that, which is information. Okay? That's called mapping the terrain, mapping a classroom. The success of the classroom. How well did we do here? Right? How many students did we not graduate out of here? Okay? Well, you know the history, right? They killed off all the clan mothers, the wisdom keepers, right? I've already mentioned in all my other videos about when I was 6 years old, I fell in love with a beautiful girl whose name was Heather in the second grade because her spirit, the essence of her flower, just lights you up like an 8-day clock. So you realize how much imagination, creativity that she has and how much love she has in her heart. It's like, let's go create a universe together, girl. Right? Grab a box of crayons, grab a musical instrument. What do you want to go be? What kind of a universe do you want to create and experience together with that much light, with that much love, right? Because it's sort of like this, and I thought about this yesterday, You know that when a soul comes into, if you will, in this case, a link to a soul through the heart, right? My heart right here on my left side, okay, is the power generator. So when you're a female as a birth giver and you realize that, hey, I got a reproductive organ to make another one of me, not a duplicate, copy, okay, but I'm going to give birth to life. It's going to come out of me. It's not coming out of him, it's coming out of me. Okay, it's coming out of the girl, the birth giver. Okay? So that means that when that soul is experiencing being in a biotech uniform, so to speak, which is what I call a class uniform, when you're in here in a classroom, then imagine that the soul, the being that is in the womb, is not experiencing anything less than 900 megahertz. And as soon as that little newborn comes out of her, that little newborn, without its mama, giving it an enormous amount of love and care and compassion and empathy, what do you think is going to happen to that newborn? So a girl's chemistry, hormonal chemistry, her lab, is designed to do what? Preserve that life. So the first teacher is the girl. Okay? The birth giver of creation. That's the first sound vibration of love that soul and that fetus is going to experience it through a birth giver. So I've said this God knows how many times, because there is a God in me. There's also a goddess in me because I got male and female attributions. So we know how to use both sides to tune the cosmos with. So our waves are in harmony. So I wanted to mention something, I guess, because it was beautiful to experience when I walked out of that door and here was a young man that, to me, because I've had short conversations with him, is intelligent. He's able. What we do is we measure bandwidth perception, how much information that I'm going to spit out that you're able to process, and you can put that puzzle together in a construct, which means it's there in your mind, and moving pictures. And you go, wow, I just put that together the same way that it was delivered as data. Remember the eyeballs? Data processing, eyeballs, holographic processors. So I said to this young man, I said, well, we're teachers down here. We're the tribes, We're in healing, teaching, and peacekeeping mode, right? Because we love our energy. So I said, think about this. I said, I was fortunate. I grew up with a father who was a U.S. Navy fighter pilot during World War II. Okay, and I read all my father's history. He showed me everything that he did. He flew combat air patrol over North Africa when General Patton's troops hit the beaches. Okay, unfortunately, he got shot down by friendly fire, ended up in the drink. And there was a guy on the bridge of a destroyer, I believe it was the USS Forest, as I remember it. One guy with one pair of binoculars. Had he not seen a white speck going up and down in the Atlantic, I wouldn't be here. Okay? So they picked him up, and then he ended up on the Swanee, and then he ended up being detached onto a land base at Guadalcanal and was part of the Cactus Air Force. Okay? And he ended up, what was it? He was with a small group. I believe they were flying F-6F Hellcats. And they intercepted, I think it was about 36 Zeeks, which were built by Mitsubishi. And they were a very fast, but a very lightly armored vehicle to get around in, right? And my dad got I believe it was a 20 millimeter, if I'm not mistaken, through the side of the fuselage and tore part of his knee off. And he was losing blood quick and made what's called a dead stick landing at Guadalcanal, and they yanked him out of the cockpit, and he recovered in New Zealand. My dad always loved New Zealand. Okay, and then he went on to be an instructor, formed his own squadron of Corsairs, F-2G Goodyears, out at Los Alamitos for the coming invasion of Japan. That never happened. But he went into aeronautical engineering, went into the space program, went into X projects. But what I learned through my father early is what allowed me to be able to scale up Star Wars at a pretty fast pace, because all I had to do was look at all my dad's journals and Newsweek, Space Technology, and the rest of that, and realize in my own mind with my imagination, hey man, I'm already out in the universe somewhere. So you can imagine reading Superman comics and then Star Trek, I'm already there. Okay? So now you have a completely different frame of reference of the universe that you already know that you live in. So you begin to realize they're lying to us, they're keeping all this shit hid, and the rest of it. So you realize that your state of awareness and the vibration that you use to experience the cosmos with is on a level in which other people's, in other words, you're aware that you're just not aware of this stuff. And that gets into all the programming stuff that I talked about earlier, because they're running their stuff, not our stuff, which is speed of the vibration. So now I'm to bandwidth, the width of the band, okay, which is the width of the wave. So I gave an example of this to this young man this morning, and I said, listen, my dad lived in Newport Beach. That allowed me to be able to go out surfing every day, and then my dad would take me to school, okay? And so I would go out on the water, and I said, one of the things, I said, if you ever know that waves come in sets, okay? So the first one that comes through, then you have the second one, and the third one, and then the fourth one is always the biggest. So I said, if you've ever been on the beach, particularly on the west coast of California, out in Hawaii, you'll see all the surfers sitting out there in what we call the outside the early set waves. They want to ride that big wave because we're saltwater biology. So we're riding the wave, the harmonic, okay? So we love to ride her waves, particularly riding the waves of an emotion, a high frequency emotion. Most powerful energy I know. And I know what it's like to be with the most powerful waves that come from a girl's heart. Okay, let's go create a universe together. So that's why we sit outside. So I said, imagine that you're on an XY axis, right? So you're looking at the wave sideways, okay? Which means you're not taking off of it going longitudinally, but on a latitude. So when you're, say, down at Newport Beach, and you're on a pier, and you're looking southbound towards, say, Corona del Mar from the Newport Beach Pier, you're looking at the wave latitudinally. So what you can do is measure the width of each wave as it's passing and coming in to hit the beach. That's called bandwidth of that wave. And the width of that band on a larger consciousness level is called perception. The perception of all those waves that is driving those waves that we surf on with our perception, with her perception, to do that with. Okay? So if you want to fill up more space at a higher rate of speed to experience more of what we create that we can experience having so much fun, you want to be running on an enormous amount of voltage because you're running on an enormous amount of light. Right? It went snap. That's a very short conversation with that young man that took